Peace and all praise to the Almighty God, Amen Ra. This is your brother Radio 1 coming back at you again with another video of truth and historical reality. Now, the name of this video is The Confusion of Hebrews to Negroes, and Ronald Dalton gets corrected. Now, before I jump off into this topic, there's some things that you got to know about me. And there's some things that you're not going to like about me. Okay? First of all, I am a modern day ancient historian. I am the living image of an ancient historian today. Meaning, I do not deal with terms such as Nilo-Saharan, Afro-Asiatic, Niger-Congo, Bantu, West African. I don't deal with terms like that because those terms were made up by 18th century and 19th century pseudo-white scholars, okay? The same people that enslaved our ancestors. So I do not deal with the writings that were written after the enslavement of our ancestors. I only deal with the writings and the sources that were written before the enslavement of our ancestors, because that is where the most truth lies at. Now, and also, some of you say, well, I have to go deeper and deeper and deeper. No, I don't have to go that deep. I don't have to go back 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 10,000 years. I can go back 1,000 years to debunk the information that you Negroes, you pseudo-Negroes today, and to debunk the information of you white scholars or you white racist, white supremacist scholars, to debunk the information y'all putting out today. I don't have to go back that far, because we all know, and those who are educated on this subject know, that your information goes no further back than 200 to 300 years. A lot of the Hebrew Israelites, when they say Israelites were in West Africa, their sources are only 17th century, 18th century, 19th century AD, 200, 300 years ago. It's not that old. It's late and it's pseudo, and it's just as good as made up. That's why I don't have to try so hard with y'all, because y'all are so pseudo. It's crazy. But so addressing this book. Now, I did read the book. I didn't watch the movie yet. I'm going to watch the movie called Hebrews to Negroes. And I read some of the book. I haven't read it all. I read a lot of it, but I'm speaking on what I read. Okay? So this brother, Ronald Dalton, he claims to be a Hebrew Israelite. And by reading the book, I can tell that the brother has a lot of knowledge and information. And if you watching Ronald Dalton, hear me out, because I'm going to correct you on some of the things you said. Okay, but although this brother has a lot of knowledge, he seems to be confused about who he is, who his ancestors were, and who were the ancestors of African Americans. And he's just trying to figure out who we are. But at the same time, what I see you doing, Ronald Dalton, and what I see Ronald Dalton doing, to all my people that's listening, what I see him doing is he is rejecting the original ancient historical sources and seeking lies from late pseudo sources. So it's like the truth is right there in your face, but you don't want to accept it. So you have to accept something and reject something. And what you're doing is you're trying to accept the lies and the pseudo information, okay, that is given to you by our modern day white oppressors or our descendants of our slave masters. That's what you're accepting, but you are rejecting the old information. Brother, my brother Ronald Dalton, in to all you Hebrew Israelites out there, let me make it known to you. You are betraying your African ancestors to live a Hebrew Israelite lie. Now we're going to get to the bottom of this. Now, so let me just get right into it. So the brother said in this book, and some of it I can remember by heart. He said that he went into Africa, into West Africa, and asked the people about their origins, about who they are. And he said that they didn't know. They did not know. But then he turned around and said that they claim to be Hebrew Israelites. Well, how could they know they are Hebrew Israelites if they didn't know who their ancestors were at all? But let me make it clear to you. Okay, I'm going to speak some reality to you, my brother. Those people in Africa, most people in Africa, West Africa, Sudan, wherever, they do not read history. And they do not know who their ancestors were. And frankly, they do not care. Because all they are worried about is making money and living a better life. That's all they care about. That's what most people care about today. They don't care about history and ancient writings and all that. That's why you have to leave it up to the authorities to teach them and educate them. So really, you shouldn't have been asking them questions. They should have been asking you questions. And also he said, okay, Ronald Dalton, he said that all the people of West Africa, West and Central Africa, were Hebrew Israelites. But then he turned around and said that the Hebrew Israelites in West and Central Africa were sold by Hamites. So what's going on here? That makes no sense, brother. How can they all be Israelites and be sold by Hamites? I'm trying to figure that out. That makes no sense. But let me tell you the truth, okay? Because apparently, Brother Ronald Dalton has not interacted with many people. See, I interact with people all the time. So I know what people are about. These trolls come on my page. They come with their pseudo nonsense, and I let them run off at the mouth. But I know what they're all about, and they're all playing games. They're all pseudo. They don't have no real information. That's why I don't have to try so hard, because they're all pseudo. Okay, they don't want to debate, and when you debunk them, they go run and never show back up. Okay, and I had 5 people that challenged me to a debate, but they never on a platform, on a major platform, but they didn't show up. They never showed up because their information is pseudo. That's why I have the confidence, because I know I got the truth. See, there is a difference between in having a lot of truth. Okay, no, there's a difference between and having a lot of information and having truth. A lot of these cats, they have a lot of information, but they have little truth or no truth. See, they accept too much garbage. You have too much garbage. A lot of information you got to reject it. See, that's my biggest strength. My main strength is I resist lies and garbage given to me by our modern day enemy, or our modern day slave master, which is the white man. So, my brother, some of that stuff you have to let go. You have to reject it. And you have to accept the truth that's in front of you, which you do not want to do. So, but back to the subject. So he said the Africans, the West and Central Africans are Hebrew Israelites. Are all Hebrew Israelites, but they were sold by Hamites. That makes no sense. But truth is, before the coming of Islam and Christianity, all of West Africa was Hamites. Now, some of you say, well, what I mean by Hamite? Well, Hamite derives from Camite. Camite derives from Kim, which is Kemet, or the people of the Nile Valley. That is where the ancestors of West Africans come from. Okay, that's what Hamite and Camite is the same thing. So when I say I'm a Hamite, I'm saying I'm a Kemite or a Camite. Okay, that's the reality, the historical reality on that. But truth is, back to the subject, before the coming of Islam and Christianity, all the people of West and Central Africa were Africans or Hamites. But after they were converted to Christianity and Islam and Judaism as well, they started claiming to be Israelites. And when we read the records from the Songhai Empire, okay, they also claim to be Arabs. But I'm going to read to you from this book. This book right here, you got to get it. It's called the Tariq al-Fatah. Okay? The Timbuktu Chronicles. You got to get this book. Now, this book, I read it all, and this book it was written by Islamic Africans or Muslim Africans. So a lot of the information coming from this book is not going to be true. It's going to be, most of it is, especially the origins of their ancestors, it's Islamic propaganda. That's all it is. These are Muslim Africans. These are not Africans before Islam. These are Africans after Islam or after the conversion of Islam. So, but let's read, I'm going to read a passage from here. Okay? And it is on page 28. And it goes on to say, and it's talking about the king Askia Muhammad, who was the king of the Songhai Empire in the 1500s AD. He was the first king of the Askia kings. And he made a journey, a pilgrimage to Mecca in Egypt, in Cairo. Because there was a caravan road that led from Timbuktu in West Africa all the way to Egypt. So some of you saying, well, how did the Egyptians and the Hamites get to West Africa? Well, there you go. They got there on the caravan road. You just have to do some research to know this. Okay, because a lot of people that's saying this nonsense, they never read one page of history in their life. So they do not know what the hell they're talking about. But let's read this passage. And when I read this passage, it's going to explain why the Africans in West Africa claim the Hebrew origin and the Arab origin that they did. So it goes on to say, page 28, and it says, the Sheikh replied, there are a total of 12 caliphs, 5 of whom came from Medina. Okay, it says, the Sheikh replied, he was talking to the king Askia Muhammad when he was in Mecca and when he traveled to Egypt and Mecca. And he goes on to say, the Sheikh replied, there are a total of 12 caliphs. Okay, there are a total of 12 caliphs, 5 of whom came from Medina, 2 from Cairo, 1 from Syria, and 2 from Iraq. All of these caliphs have already reigned. There are only 2 more caliphs to come, both of whom will reign in the land of Tukrua, which is West Africa. You are one of these caliphs. 1 more will come after you. Your family hails from Toronto as descendants of the people of Yemen. And the capital of your kingdom will be Galgal, which is in modern day Mali, situated on the Niger River. So we see here, he says, your family hails from Toronto as descendants of the people of Yemen. So we see after he made his pilgrimage or his journey to Yemen, the sheikhs there gave him a Yemenite origin. So that doesn't mean that that was his true origin, but that's the origin that he claims because he was a Muslim. somebody's a Christian, they're going to claim to be a Jew or an Israelite. Doesn't mean that's who they are really, but after reading the Bible and they become so fascinated with the stories, they just got to claim Hebrew Israelite. Same with a Muslim. They claim, and there are more accounts in that book that says that the Songhai kings came from Yemen. But that is nothing more than Islamic propaganda. First of all, Arabia, before Islam, never sent out any colonies. They never migrated anywhere. So that's pseudo history of later times. But who did send out colonies before the coming of the Arabs? You had the Romans, the Greeks, but before all that, you had the Pharaohs, you had Egypt. They sent out colonies to West Africa, Sudan. This is all documented. What is wrong with you people, man? You people do not read. That's why I'm going to make a DVD and a video in a whole, maybe like 3-hour course going through the whole thing. And I'm not going to charge that much for it. I might charge nothing for it. Who knows? But I might need a little support, you know, but I'm not going to charge much for it. But yeah, back to the subject. So this brother is confused. And like I said, he do not interact with many people, okay, or many people that's different than him to really know what's going on. See, a lot of people in Africa today, a lot of African Americans, they have been so destroyed, so torn down by racism and white supremacy, and they will accept anything that comes their way. And I know a lot of my people don't read. And that's why I got a lot of respect for my brother Ronald Dalton, because I know he reads. He's real educated, but he's just having a hard time figuring out who he is. But my brother, some things you gotta accept, some things you gotta resist, some things you gotta reject. Now you say that we are both Israelites and Hamites. Well, I can make the stronger argument that says the opposite. I can say that our ancestors were Hamites before some Israelites came, or before some Christians and Muslims came. That we were all Hamites and Africans, and that's what the history says. Now, but back to the subject. Now he says that all the people of West and Central Africa were Hebrew Israelites, but truthfully, it's the other way around. The people in East Africa, in Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, those people have more ties to the Hebrew Israelites and the Jews than the people of West Africa do. Because those people, the East Africans, they can go straight to the Old Testament and prove that the Hebrew Israelites were in their lands. And that's another thing. If you can't prove it with the Old Testament and you got to resort to late 17th century sources, nah, it's all wrong. You're done. I mean, you just give it up. Okay, because if you have to go to late sources that late, there's no truth in it. It's inaccurate. It's all fake history. That's what it is. It's just fake history that was given to you by your white Christian convert or your Arab Muslim convert. That's all it is. You have brothers making these videos and they trying so hard. You don't have to try so hard. All you have to do is to know history. Know the chronology of history, and you will know what was going on. Okay, the West Africans in Africa claiming to be Hebrew Israelites ain't got nothing to do with some Jews fleeing Jerusalem in 70 AD and coming into West Africa. No, that is a myth and a lie that never happened. It never happened. Okay, and the source for this comes from Josephus Flavius. And Josephus Flavius says nothing of Jews fleeing into West Africa. As a matter of fact, he says nothing about West Africa at all. All he says were, after the sack of Jerusalem, the Jews were sent into Egypt as slaves. So they didn't flee anywhere. They were sent into Egypt as slaves to work the mines. So, and if they did flee, it would have been impossible for them to come into Egypt, because Egypt during this time was fortified and guarded by Roman garrisons. They would have been caught at the border of Egypt. They wouldn't have made it far. Now we know back during the Babylonian exile, when the Jews fled from Nebuchadnezzar, okay, Egypt was being ruled by Pharaoh at that time. And Pharaoh was an ally of the Israelites and the Jews at that time. So they allowed the Israelites to come in and settle in Egypt. Or the Jews and Israelites to come in and settle in Egypt, because Pharaoh was an ally of the Israelites, and he was an enemy of the king of Assyria in Babylon. But during the time of the Romans, that was a different time. Pharaoh was no longer in Egypt during that time. Okay, the descendants of Pharaoh during that time, they fled to Sudan, yes, and they fled to West Africa, into the interior of Africa. So when we're dealing with a migration from the east, we're not talking about Israelites. We're talking about Egyptians and Cushites and even Canaanites from the east. Because you had the tribes of Foot and you had the Canaanites dwelling on the coast from Libya to Morocco. Those are the people of Foot in Canaan. But all the people in the interior were Egyptians and Cushites. See, I just gave it all to you right there. I should be charging you for this information, but I'm not, because I don't want any money. It just, I get joy in my heart just letting you know, just educate you. But I want you to acknowledge what I teach you and reject the nonsense and the garbage that's coming from the enemy, which is the racist white European, the devil. Okay? Accept nothing he says. So, but I'm not going to be there much longer, but y'all want to address some more things about coming from Ronald Dalton. Because the brother, he possesses a lot of knowledge, but he just all over the place with it. But let's see here. But yeah. So I have a quote here from Ibn Khaldun, which was an Arab historian that lived in the 1300s AD. Like I said, I don't have to go that far back to deal with you pseudos. I don't. And I'm not going to try so hard. But he had this to say about the Negroes. Okay? Now, the Negro, we should not be using terms such as Negro, because Negro was a word invented by the European to describe Africans in the sub-Saharan Africa. But before we were Negroes, we were called Sudan or Sudanese. And before that, we were called Ethiopians. So really, Negro is a pseudo term for us. And Negro has nothing to do with Israelite, no connection at all. Okay? Even before we was called Negro, we was never called Israelites or Jews or from the tribe of Judah. Negro is in connection with Sudanese and Ethiopian, which were the sons of Cush and Mizraim. But now in this passage it uses Negro, but the real word is Sudan or Sudani or Sudanese. That's the actual word, because Negro is not an Arab word. The Arabs use the word Sudan or Sudanese to describe all black people dwelling south of the Sahara. It has nothing to do with the modern day Sudan that you see today that is south of Egypt. No. This was all of Africa, south of Morocco, south of Algeria, south of Libya, and south of Egypt. That's who the people of Sudan were. So I'm going to read a passage from there. Okay, and he goes on to say, Ibn Khaldun, from his book called the Muqaddimah. He says, genealogists who have no knowledge of the true nature of things imagine that Negroes are the children of Ham, the son of Noah, and that they were singled out to be black as a result of Noah's curse, which produced Ham's color and slavery God inflicted upon his descendants. You know, and it says, it is mentioned in the Torah that Noah, his son Ham, okay, reference is made there to blackness. The curse included no more than that Ham's descendants should be slaves of his brother's descendants. To attribute the blackness of the Negroes to Ham reveals disregard of the true nature of heat and cold and the influence they exercise upon the air and climate and upon creatures into being in it. The black color of skin common to the inhabitants. Okay, but I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I just want you to focus on the part where he says, genealogists who have no knowledge of the true nature of things imagine that the Negroes are the children of Ham. And then later on, he disregards them being cursed black because of the Noah's curse. If you read the whole thing, he pretty much says that is silly and is false. But it goes right here, source right here, saying that the people of West Africa, the Sudan, were descendants of Ham. They were not descendants of Shem. Okay, as a matter of fact, the Arabs who invaded Africa were were Shemites, or descendants of Shem. And the European Christians that took us into slavery were from Japhet, or from the line of Japhet. That's who the Europeans were. So, here's the problem. And I'm going to make it real for you, Ronald Dalton. Here's the problem. We have white Europeans today and Arabs in North Africa claiming to be Hamites, or claiming to be the descendants of Egyptians. But in reality, they are not. In reality, they are from the lineage of Japhet, Europeans, and the Arabs are from Shem. They are Shemites. They have nothing to do with Ham, but yet they are claiming to be the people of Pharaoh and the people of Mizraim. See, brother, you have to keep in mind. Now, I know a lot of you say, well, the white man and everybody else are not saying that black people in America are not the Israelites, or West Africans have nothing to do with Israelites. Well, at the same time, they are also saying that the people of West Africa have nothing to do with Hamites or Egyptians. They're saying this, but they are all lies. Because the white man wants to claim Egypt, and the Arab in North Africa also wants to claim Egypt. But they are in denial of their Shemitic and Japhetic identity. Okay? Their true ancestors, the true ancestors of the white man and the Arab, the true ancestors of the white man was Japhet. And he is related to the Greeks and the Italians and the Romans and the Celtics and the Iberians. He has nothing to do with Ham or Egypt. So he is a fake. He's a fraud. The same with the Arab. The true ancestors of the Arab come from Shem. They were Shemites. And a lot of them were Ishmaelites. They come from Abraham. So they have more connection to Abraham than you do. But here's the twist. Here's the twist. The Negro, the black man, is obsessed with Israelite and Shem. But in reality, your true history is Ham, African, Cushite, Mizraim. That's who you are. So it's like two groups exchanging identities, trying to steal each other's identities. Got the white man and the Arab trying to steal Egypt, trying to steal Pharaoh, want to claim Pharaoh. And you got the Negro and the black man who wants to deny his African Pharaoh ancestors and try to steal Israelite or Hebrew Israelite. Makes no sense. You Negroes are losing it. You are betraying your ancestors for this lie. But I am here to wake you up and let you know the truth. Okay? I got a lot of knowledge, but that does not mean I accept everything. A lot of times I play dumb. You know, I just listen to people when they talk, you know, and just one ear out the other. You know, but I got a lot of knowledge, you know, and I'll more likely have more knowledge than you. But my biggest strength is rejecting lies, resisting what does not make sense. So all you have to know is the chronology of history for the answers. You have to go to the old stuff, okay? You have to go to the same sources, the same source that said the Israelites, that mentions the Exodus out of Egypt, the Assyrian and Babylonian captivity. If you can prove it from that source, that's who you are. Okay, if it doesn't mention Israelites in West Africa in that source, then you got to accept it for what it is. Because all these late sources, let me tell you something about these late sources. They're not credible. They are not credible. They're invalid because they are too late. So when you say some Jews came into West Africa, who were those Jews? Were they converts? Were they real Jews? Well, we know they weren't real Jews because the real Jews left Jerusalem during the Babylonian captivity. And they left Jerusalem in 70 AD. And when they left Jerusalem during the Assyrian and Babylonian captivity, we know the Bible says it. They were in Egypt. They were in Cush, south of Egypt, modern day Sudan. They were in Persia. They were in Assyria. They were in Elam. They were in Greece. And later on, they were found in Spain, Morocco. But that has no connection to us. They weren't in West Africa until later times. So the question is, who were those Jews? And the answer is, they were converts. They were converted. Simple as that. So that's where your answer comes from. And there are some more things I want to address about that. Yeah, and also he mentions, Ronald Dalton mentions the lamb. The people called lamb mentioned by the Muslim historian Al-Idrisi. Now, here's the thing you have to understand about the lamb. Now, in his book called Book of Roger, he describes the lamb as being Jews. But then he goes on to say that they are unbelievers and they are infidels. There's your answer right there. That goes to show you that they were not true Jews, because there's nothing Jewish about being an unbeliever and being an infidel. Because when you read the Bible, the Jews and the Israelites, they were against that. The Jews and the Israelites were believers. They were believers. So there's no way that the lamb can be true Jews because they were non-believers and they were infidels, or the better word, Gentiles. Now the Gentiles were seen to the Muslims and the Christians as people who worship idols or idolatry, who worship the sun, people who were much like the ancient Egyptians and the Cushites. That's why I say these people that were in West Africa before the coming of Islam and Christianity, their ancestors came from Egypt and Cush. You can't, there's no getting around that. And you can't just say that they were indigenous to West Africa. Because if you say that, then you will have to say that the oldest man originated in West Africa, which you can't prove. The oldest man originated in East Africa. And when we deal with migrations in sub-Saharan Africa, the migrations never took place from west to east. The migrations always took place from east to west, meaning from the Nile Valley to West Africa. That's where the migrations always took place. So, and there were several migrations. There were pre-dynastic migrations, meaning migrations before the dynasties of Egypt. And there were also migrations during dynastic Egypt, dynastic migrations during the New Kingdom, which I will get off into in my new video. There were migrations during dynastic Egypt, and there were also migrations during post-dynastic Egypt, meaning after dynastic Egypt, meaning after the fall of the pharaohs. There were, when the Persians and Assyrians attacked Egypt, this caused a lot of Egyptians to flee south and west, because that was the only place they could flee, south and west. And they also had like a special connection to these lands. These lands were talked about in their hieroglyphics. They were called the spiritual lands, or the Amenti, or the land of the dead, the resting place of the gods, the lands west of Egypt. A lot of you don't know this because you're too busy listening to these fake scholars who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And a lot of them, they got knowledge, but they just don't have the honesty in them to tell the truth. They're too corrupted. So, but yeah, that's the deal on that. Now, back to the lamb. Now, we also must keep in mind that area, the lamb in ancient Ghana, okay, the lamb lived during the time of the Ghana Empire. Now, the people of Ghana in all that area during that time, they were Muslims. So we're dealing again with Muslim Africans. Now, in the same writer, Al-Idrisi, who said that the lamb were Jews, he also said that the people of Ghana were Arabs, and that the king of Ghana traced his descent from an Arab, which we know is not true. But being that the king of Ghana and the people of Ghana were converts, that's the origin they adopted for themselves. So, yeah, you know, I didn't come on here to bash the brother. You know, I got love for my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters, still my brothers and sisters. You know, and when I'm dealing with my brothers and sisters, you know, I refrain from being angry. So I gotta work on my anger, because it's not good, because it distracts you from getting this truth out. So we have to control our anger when we teach. Now, when I'm dealing with white supremacists or white racists, I get angry because I can't stand their guts. I mean, they are the worst of the worst. They are the scum of the earth to me. You know, so I got no respect for them. They are the fakest of fake, and they are the worst of worst. And I do not reason with a white supremacist. So, but I will reason with my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters. Now, we have to come to an agreement. We have to work something out to my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters, because you can't be telling our people that they have nothing to do with Egypt. You can't tell them that. You cannot tell them that, because we can go to the records and prove that wrong. Because the people of West Africa were majority Hamites or majority Africans. And if there were some Hebrew Israelites, they were very small in population. And we know that the slaves that were taken from West Africa were taken in big numbers. And a lot of those people, they were Hamites. They were Africans. They were Egyptians. They were Cushites. So you cannot tell us that. If you try to tell me that, I will correct you. And I will go to the records and prove you wrong. And I don't have to go that far back to debunk your information. Because, like I said, your information is late and it's pseudo. So, man, if there's any more I want to touch on, I'll make another video, but I had to touch on that. You know, maybe I can go for an hour, and also, let's also make it clear, okay? Now, I might do another video on this. Now, I know you hear all the time people say, well, your ancestors come from West Africa. You have nothing to do with Egypt. Well, and the best answer for that is, what is West Africa? West Africa is a modern term. West African has nothing to do with the ancient world, and not even the medieval world. West Africa was made up 200-300 years ago. So that is irrelevant. And that's why they changed the names of these places, so they can take away who you are, so they can hide who you are. But truth is, the ancestors of Black Americans were taken from the Western Sudan. And another fact, our ancestors did not live on the coast of West Africa. They did not live on the West Coast. They were taken from the interior of Africa. And in the interior was the so-called Niger River. But what was the Niger River called before it was called the Niger River? It was called the Nile River, because the people living on it came from the Nile of Egypt and Cush. And I got proof to prove this. So all these people that's telling you this nonsense, they do not know what the hell they're talking about. They never read a page of history. They never studied. And there's a difference between reading and studying. If you read something, you just see it. But when you study it, you understand it. So you have to study. So, yeah. And that's not all. There's a lot of information, a lot of truth that I gotta get out. I may not do it on this channel. And when I get my new channel, I'll post up the link for you guys to go subscribe to it. And it's gonna be big. It's gonna be real big. I got big hopes for it. Because, man, there's a lot of lies going around. I mean, this right here, this era right here, this is the pseudo era. This is the age of pseudoism. People say, well, there's a lot of information flowing around these days, but yeah, there's a lot of information, but there's not a lot of truth. There's a lot of information, but little truth. And like I said, I'm an ancient historian. I only acknowledge what the ancients write. Okay? I don't give a damn about this white man or our modern day slave master, or about this racist white devil. I accept nothing he says. If it's not coming from the ancients, I don't want to hear it. Okay, and a lot of these terms such as Niger, Congo, Nilo-Saharan, Afro-Asiatics, they are used to divide Africans, to divide the African continent. And it have nothing to do with our ancient ancestors. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Listen to me. See, a lot of you Negroes do not want to listen. You don't like to listen. And when you get proven wrong and you get embarrassed, then you end up looking like a fool. So listen to me when I tell you that this is the age of pseudo information. And pretty much this is my subject. This is my genre. I'm owning it. When it comes to real, documented, written, historical migrations, all me. If you want information on that, come to me. Don't go to nobody else, because they're going to lie to you and they're not going to know what the hell they're talking about. They don't read. If you ask them questions, they're not going to be able to answer. If you ask them for the source, they're not going to be able to give it to you because they don't have it. So I'm going to close out, but I just wanted to address that to Ronald Dalton, because you seem like a very decent, articulate, educated brother who has a lot of knowledge on history. And I'm going to read your book some more, because I'm trying to, I still want to learn, but, I still, I already know a lot, but, there's a couple things that I want to learn, but that doesn't mean I'm going to accept everything you say like everybody else is doing. Because I know you get a lot of people making videos and they applauding you, for your great work, but, I play hardball, so I'm not easy to please. I'm not easy to convince. So, I will critique you and criticize your information if I see some errors in it, but being that you my brother, and a lot of Hebrew Israelites are my brother, I'm not going to bash you. I'm not going to disrespect you, because we are brothers, and I say regardless of this Kemetic and Hebrew Israelite beef that's going on, Hebrew Israelites in the Kemetic community should unite, because we have too much in common. We have a lot in common. Okay? Both of our origins, we come from Egypt. We're both tied to ancient Egypt. We both can't stand the white man. And we both want our people to come together and unite. And we want the best for our people, for African people here in America. So at the end of the day, we should unite. And I know some of y'all, some of you Hebrew Israelites are not going to listen, because a lot of Hebrew Israelites, they think they know it all, especially the Hebrew Israelites that's in these camps. They don't want you explaining nothing. They just think they know everything. And you just got to sit there and listen. Nah. That's why I like making these videos, because I don't have nobody interrupting me. I can just stand here and teach without somebody talking over me thinking they know everything. And the information that's coming out their mouth, they can't even validate it with sources, with historical sources. So, but I'm going to close it out. Okay. And I just wanted to teach my brother some historical reality and let you know, my brother, and let my brother Ronald Dalton and the Hebrew Israelites, whoever watching, do not accept everything you hear. Some things you have to reject, because the white Christian and the Arab Muslims, they don't want us to claim Egypt. They want to take Egypt away from us. So although you are claiming Hebrew Israelite, and although I know that you are not a Hebrew Israelite, I know that you are a Hamite and you have nothing to do with Hebrew Israelite, but although you are claiming that false identity, try not to bash Egypt, ancient Egypt, because ancient Egypt needs us. Ancient Egypt is our true ancestors. Even when we deal with Cush, the Cushites were in Egypt. The Cushites became Egyptianized and mixed with the Egyptians. And at one time, they even fought for Egypt. Okay? Even when the Israelites were in trouble, the Cushites were the ones that came to their aid, and the Egyptians came to their help when they were in trouble with the Babylonians. And the Egyptians and the Cushites, they were not even Israelites. They didn't believe in the same God, but yet they were blessed enough and strong enough to help the Israelites in times of need. And I know some of y'all want to claim to be cursed Israelites, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to claim to be a cursed people. Now, if the book's saying that you're going to stay cursed and be cursed all the time, then just let it go. Just let it go. I mean, especially if you're not an Israelite, which you're not, just be yourself. God is not going to hate you for being yourself. But yeah, like I said, you had other nations such as the Persians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Cushites, who were not even Israelites, but yet they were still blessed. They were still powerful. They were still prosperous. But some of these Israelites make it seem like you got to be an Israelite and you got to obey by the laws of the God of Israel in order to be blessed, which is false. Because you had all these other nations of people who were not Israelites calling on their own gods, and they were still blessed. And I know for a fact that we are not Israelites. And I feel that if we be ourselves and we call on our true God, which is Amun-Ra, the God of Africa, or the God of Libya, all Africa, if we call on him, we will be blessed. Well, of course, you calling on him anyway, because you say his name at the end of your prayers. So, but yeah, that is who we are. Be yourself. Find out who you are. To Brother Ronald Dalton and all the Hebrew Israelites and everybody that's watching, do not look to lie. See, that is your problem. The truth is right in front of you, but you're looking elsewhere for lies. You're looking to these later sources for lies, when the truth is right there in front of you from the original ancient sources. And if you're going to reject the ancient sources, you have nothing. If you're going to reject the ancient writings in favor of this modern day garbage, you have nothing. You can't talk about Egypt. You can't talk about Israel. You can't talk about Pharaoh Ramses. You can't talk about Tutmosis. You can't talk about the Persians. You can't talk about the Phoenicians or the Canaanites. You can't talk about the Moors, because that's who the ancient Africans were. And you got to acknowledge that first, and this later stuff later. So that's it. I'm going to cut it short. There's a lot more I want to say, but if I have some more to say, I'll make another video. And I'm going to leave it at that. And if my brother, if you feel, if you're watching this video, feel free to comment, and we can watch it. But this is what I do. This is what I love. I enjoy reading history. I love knowledge. Being educated on who we are, teaching on who we are. So that's it. So this is your brother Radio 1 saying to you, until next time, Egypt stays in Africa. Peace.